Okay, let's unpack this. We're right smack in the middle of graduation season.
Yeah, that time of year again.
Millions of students, what was it, over 4 million, getting ready to, toss their caps, step out into the working world.
It's usually such an exciting time, full of possibility.
Maybe a little bit of nerves, sure, but mostly excitement.
Absolutely. But the sources you've given us for this deep dive, well, they paint a picture that's maybe a bit more complicated this year.
Complicated how?
They frame this moment as a critical inflection point. That's the term they use.
Okay.
It's basically where that traditional path, campus to career, it's running headfirst into this huge force, artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it definitely feels different this time around. And our mission here, really pulling from all the articles, the research, the notes you shared, is to understand why. Why does this graduating class face such a, unique challenge? How is AI already reshaping the job market they're walking into?
Well, one place to start is that report we looked at from the New York Federal Reserve. They didn't exactly mince words.
What did it say?
It noted that employment prospects for new graduates have, and I quote, deteriorated noticeably.
Deteriorated noticeably.
Yeah, and we're seeing the numbers kind of bear that out. Projections showing graduate unemployment climbing maybe to 5.8% this year in 2025.
And what really jumps out looking through this material is that this isn't just like a general economic dip affecting everyone equally.
Yeah, it seems not.
It looks like new grads are being hit, disproportionately hard compared to other workers.
Yeah.
Why is that?
And that's the key thing these sources keep circling back to. AI automation.
Okay.
Think about those entry-level tasks, right? The stuff that was traditionally the very first step onto the career ladder.
Like what?
Well, basic coding checks, maybe sifting through piles of legal documents, frontline customer support, that kind of thing. AI is now capable of handling, a significant chunk of that work.
So wait, AI is basically eating the bottom rungs of the ladder? Is that the idea?
That's a pretty stark image, but yeah, essentially. One of the articles even drew a parallel, comparing this moment to the big structural shift we saw with manufacturing jobs back in the 80s.
That's a powerful comparison.
It is, because it suggests this isn't just a temporary blip, It suggests a fundamental change in how the labor market is structured.
And the scale?
The potential scale is massive. One source we looked at suggested AI could eventually eliminate half of all entry-level white-collar positions.
Half. Wow. That just feels staggering.
It is staggering.
So which industries are feeling this most acutely right now, according to the research you looked at?
Well, based on these sources, the impact definitely isn't uniform across the board, but the hardest hit sectors seem to be tech, finance, and legal.
Tech, finance, legal. Okay.
Yeah, we're already seeing reports of declining junior hiring rates, particularly noticeable on places like Wall Street, for instance.
Okay, but hold on. Tech is also supposed to be creating jobs, right? That's the other side of the coin we always hear. What do the numbers say about the overall balance? Is it a net gain or a net loss, broadly speaking?
Yeah, that's a really important point. The data does show transformation creating new opportunities. There was one projection for 2025, I think it estimated technology creating about 11 million jobs.
Okay, 11 million created.
Compared to displacing around 9 million.
So a slight net gain then, at least on paper for this specific year.
For 2025, that specific projection suggests that yes. But, the sources also highlight what employers are expecting.
Right.
Around 40% of companies anticipate reducing their workforce specifically because of AI automation. 40%. And the longer-term outlook points to potentially 50 million U.S. jobs facing significant impact in the coming years. So, for a new graduate trying to find that very first role today, the picture feels much less certain than that big aggregate number might suggest.
Right, because the jobs being created might need totally different skills than the ones being lost. It's not a simple swap.
Exactly.
Let's dig into those sector hotspots you mentioned for unemployment. Finance, tech, legal. What's actually happening there on the ground?
Okay, so in finance, the sources link higher graduate unemployment to automation in areas like trading support and basic analysis, tasks that junior analysts used to cut their teeth on.
Okay. Algorithms taking over. Makes sense.
Pretty much. And then there's computer science grads. I mean, that was always seen as the safe bet, right?
Totally. I was really surprised to see their unemployment rising, too.
It just really highlights the speed of this change, doesn't it? AI coding assistants, automated testing tools. They're starting to handle some of the tasks that junior developers might have previously learned on the job.
Wow.
It's a Well, a very clear example of how quickly entry-level skills are evolving, or maybe even becoming obsolete in some cases.
It's fascinating and honestly a little terrifying at the same time. So how does all this shifting landscape, how does it affect how graduates feel about their job prospects? And what are employers actually looking for now?
Oh, it's absolutely impacting confidence. There was one statistic in the materials that really stood out to me.
Yeah.
49% of Gen Z job seekers believe AI has already reduced the value of their college degree.
Almost half.
Wow. Almost half. Think about that.
Yeah. Think about the time, the money, the effort that goes into a degree. And nearly half feel like it's somehow devalued.
Yeah.
Because the skills might just have a shorter shelf life than they expected before AI really took off.
Precisely. And employers, they are definitely shifting their expectations. It's interesting, actually.
It is so.
Some of those entry-level roles that now incorporate AI support are actually seeing declining compensation, according to these sources.
So wait, they expect you to use AI, but they might pay you less.
It seems counterintuitive, right? But the sources suggest companies are looking for candidates who can sort of do more with the AI, but they're not necessarily valuing that initial role as highly in terms of pay.
So they still want that fresh perspective the energy grads bring.
Absolutely. They still value bringing in new talent.
Right? But they expect you to walk in the door knowing how to effectively partner with AI tools. Like, that's table stakes now.
That's exactly it. They're looking for people who aren't just doing the baseline tasks that AI can handle. They want people who can augment their own abilities by working with these tools.
Right.
The focus is shifting, less from manual execution and more towards strategic thinking, leveraging AI insights, problem solving around the AI.
This whole situation, it really raises some huge questions about the future structure of work itself. What are the folks, like at the top, saying? The industry leaders.
Well, some of the warnings are pretty blunt, frankly.
Like what?
The CEO is Anthropic, Dario Amodei. He was quoted predicting what he called a white-collar bloodbath.
A bloodbath. Wow. Yeah. That's intense language.
Very intense. He estimated potential unemployment somewhere between 10% and 20% in professional roles. And get this, within the next 1 to 5 years.
1 to 5 years. That's incredibly soon for that kind of disruption.
It really underscores the potential impact at a level we haven't typically associated with automation before, Right. Usually we think blue-collar manufacturing.
Right. Not necessarily white-collar professional roles on that scale.
Exactly. And analysis from LinkedIn, which was mentioned in the sources, sort of echoed this concern.
What do they say?
They pointed out that automating these entry-level roles risks undermining those established career advancement pipelines, that traditional path, junior analyst to senior manager, whatever it is.
If the first step is gone or totally changed, where do you even start? How do you climb?
That's the question. Where do you even start?
Okay, is there any good news in all this? Any silver lining in the sources for the individuals trying to navigate this?
There was a small note on that, yeah. Some junior staff who are successfully using AI tools.
The ones who've adapted.
Right. They report that it actually frees them up from the really tedious, repetitive tasks.
Ah, okay.
So it allows them to focus more on the complex stuff, the creative work, the strategic thinking, the more engaging parts of the job, potentially.
So that's encouraging, at least for those who can make that pivot, who can leverage the tools effectively.
For those who can adapt, yes. There's a potential shift towards maybe more interesting work earlier, but...
But this transformation isn't just about individual jobs, right? The sources also talked about broader societal economic impact.
Oh, absolutely. Globally, for instance, one source mentioned U.S. firms expanding operations in places like India.
Why there?
Looking for lower-cost skilled labor, sure, but specifically labor that's already proficient with some of these digital tools and AI platforms.
Interesting. So it shifts where the jobs are, potentially.
Potentially, yeah. And the sources also raised concerns about the potential impact on diversity.
How so?
Well, if those traditional entry points into professions become scarcer, harder to find, it could inadvertently reduce workplace diversity over time. It might limit access for people who don't already have established networks or connections.
Right, because if fewer jobs are advertised, then maybe who you know becomes even more important.
And if that traditional entry-level rung is being removed, or maybe just fundamentally redesigned, that has massive implications for upward mobility, doesn't it?
It fundamentally does. Fewer entry positions almost definitionally mean reduced opportunities for upward mobility for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it highlights that potential socioeconomic divide we just touched on. Having existing connections, networks, that might become even more critical in a job market with fewer clearly defined starting points.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together based on everything in the sources you brought to this deep dive.
Okay.
We've seen how AI is, well, significantly impacting entry-level roles. It's hitting sectors like tech, finance, legal, particularly hard right now.
It's drastically changing what employers expect from new hires, demanding AI literacy, basically.
Right, demanding they leverage the tools.
And it's prompting some really stark warnings from industry leaders about potential unemployment risks. I mean, that white-collar bloodbath prediction is hard to forget.
It really is. The core message from all these different sources, synthesized, seems unmistakable. The AI revolution isn't just some future thing. It's here, now.
Yeah.
And it's fundamentally reshaping those early career opportunities, that familiar ladder to success. It's being redesigned in real time right as this new generation is trying to step onto the first rung.
So facing that reality, what's the path forward?
Yeah.
According to the sources, what do individuals and maybe institutions too, what do they need to be doing right now?
The research really hammered home a few key necessities. For the graduates themselves, there's this huge emphasis on the need to constantly adapt and reskill. Continuously.
Yeah.
That degree, it's not the finish line anymore. Not by a long shot. Learning has to be ongoing because skills seem to be depreciating faster than ever before.
You really just can't rest on your laurels, can you? Even with a brand new degree.
Not in this environment, it seems. And crucially, it's about knowing how to leverage AI tools effectively.
Not just use them, but leverage them.
Exactly. Understanding AI's capabilities, its limitations, how to work with it, not try to compete directly against it on tasks this does well, that's becoming a baseline skill fast.
Okay, so adapt, reskill, leverage AI. That's on the individual. What about bigger picture?
Beyond individual action, the sources also definitely call for policy innovation. From businesses, from governments.
Meaning what?
Meaning we need new approaches, new thinking to address these disruptions in the talent pipeline. We need to make sure pathways into the workforce remain open, accessible.
It really sounds like this isn't just a problem for graduates to figure out on their own then. Everyone has a role to play.
Absolutely. Both the individuals navigating their own careers and the institutions. You know, the companies doing the hiring, the educational systems preparing students, the government setting policy. Everyone needs to adapt and probably adapt quickly to this new reality.
So thinking about all this,
Yeah.
What does it mean for you listening right now? Maybe you're graduating soon. Maybe you're on the hiring side looking for that new talent. Or maybe you're just trying to get your head around these massive shifts happening in the economy.
It means understanding that the ground beneath us is definitely moving. It's shifting. And if these sources are right, if that traditional career ladder is being fundamentally redesigned as we speak, it raises a really important question, I think, for you to consider. What does upward mobility even look like in this new landscape? What does climbing the ladder mean now?
And maybe even more critically,
Yeah.
who might get left behind in this redesign?